Ferrari has realized that to dismantle the Mercedes W7 at Suzuka, they don't actually need to find more horsepower. They need to cheat the wind. What we're looking at is a total tactical pivot, a high-stakes engineering coup designed to weaponize the Japanese GP and turn Toto Wolff's straight-line invincibility into a terrifying data-driven nightmare. To understand why this is a terrifying reality for Toto Wolff and his team, we have to look at the centerpiece of Ferrari's Japanese upgrade package, the return of the Macarena active rear wing. This isn't just a simple flap adjustment. It is a sophisticated piece of variable geometry that Maranello has been obsessively refining since its problematic debut in Bahrain. The goal is simple in theory, but incredibly complex in execution. To physically stall the rear of the car on the straights to eliminate drag, then snap it back into a high downforce configuration in under 400 milliseconds for the corners. It is Ferrari's answer to the 2026 power unit's biggest flaw, the massive energy drain required to fight air resistance at high speeds. The Macarena wings transition is the most critical part of the SF26's current aerodynamic philosophy because it directly impacts the state of charge of the battery. If the wing remains open a fraction of a second too long, the car becomes a twitchy, aerodynamically unbalanced mess under braking. If it closes too early, the internal combustion engine has to work harder against the drag, leading to clipping before the driver even reaches the 130R. In Japan, Ferrari is bringing a refined actuation system that uses side plate-mounted hydraulics rather than a central pillar, a move that cleans up the airflow over the beam wing, but adds a significant weight penalty that the team is currently desperate to manage. Mercedes, meanwhile, has been operating with a level of imperious confidence that reminds me of the early hybrid era. And their strategy for Japan is built around the Brixworth brute force approach. They have discovered that they can effectively use their V6 engine as an onboard generator, burning slightly more fuel to keep the MGUK harvesting even when the car is at full throttle. This thermal sacrifice allows George Russell and Kimi Antonelli to maintain a higher average electrical deployment throughout the lap, meaning they suffer significantly less from the violent speed drops that occur when the battery is empty. It is a strategy of pure, unadulterated thermodynamic efficiency that Ferrari currently cannot match with hardware alone. This brings us to why Ferrari's response in Suzuka is so fascinating from a technical standpoint. They are moving toward negative torque harvesting in the first sector. Sector 1 at Suzuka, the famous S-curves, is usually a place where you want maximum throttle response and a perfectly balanced chassis. However, Ferrari's engine department, led by Enrico Galtieri, is experimenting with a mapping that forces the MGUK to harvest energy while the driver is navigating these high-speed sweeps. By creating a slight electrical drag on the crankshaft while the driver is at 70 or 80% throttle, they can trickle charge the battery in a section where Mercedes is purely spending energy. It is a high-wire act of engineering because if the harvesting is too aggressive, it will unsettle the SF26 mid-corner balance, causing the front end to wash out through the S's. If they get it right, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton will emerge from the first sector with a battery bank that is significantly fuller than their Mercedes counterparts, giving them the electrical ammunition needed to attack on the run down to the spoon curve. This isn't just a setup tweak. It is a fundamental rewrite of how an F1 car manages its power over a single lap. And it shows that Ferrari is willing to sacrifice traditional lap time to win the energy war. The layout of Suzuka itself is the ultimate judge of this philosophy, particularly when you look at the traction demands of Sector 2. GPS data from China showed that the Mercedes W7 has a decisive advantage in squat-and-go traction, pulling nearly 2 car lengths on the Ferrari the moment the steering wheel is straightened. This is where Ferrari's smaller turbocharger gamble was supposed to pay off, providing instant transient response. But the data suggests that Mercedes' superior rear-end geometry and electrical torque filling are currently winning the battle of the exits. In Japan, Ferrari has countered this by introducing a revised rear suspension linkage designed to keep the tire contact patch more consistent under heavy electrical load. When we talk about the terrifying reality for Mercedes, we are really talking about the human element, the resurgence of Lewis Hamilton. After a difficult 2025 transition, Hamilton has forensically adapted his driving style to the SF26 unique requirements. James Hinchcliffe's observation that Lewis is back isn't just hyperbole. It's backed by the telemetry of how he is managing the 2026 power units. Hamilton has always been a master of system management, and he is currently outperforming almost everyone in how he balances the Macarena wings activation with the MGUK's harvesting cycles. He is essentially acting as a human CPU, adjusting his harvesting rotaries corner by corner to ensure he has a surplus of energy for the final sector. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, is still leaning on his incredible natural speed, which occasionally puts him at odds with the car's energy requirements. Leclerc's U-shaped cornering style, where he carries immense minimum speed through the apex, is beautiful to watch but aerodynamically expensive in the SF26. By keeping the car under lateral load for longer, he is increasing the aerodynamic drag tax and preventing the MGUK from entering its harvesting window as early as Hamilton's V-shaped entries allow. In Japan, we expect to see a much closer battle between the two as Leclerc begins to adopt some of Hamilton's stop-start geometry to protect the battery state of charge. The technical fight also extends to the dark arts of aerodynamics, specifically the controversial halo fin that Ferrari briefly showcased in China. This small vortex generator positioned on the halo support is designed to clean up the turbulent air that would otherwise choke the airbox intake. Mercedes and Red Bull were ready to protest it in Shanghai, claiming it was a visibility hazard, but Ferrari's revised version for Japan is expected to be more transparent and integrated. It is a tiny detail, but in an era where the internal combustion engine is oxygen-starved due to the 50-50 power split, any improvement in airbox efficiency translates directly into raw horsepower. We must also address the elephant in the room, the SF26 weight problem. To accommodate the complex hydraulics of the Macarena wing and the extra cooling required for the high-harvesting engine maps, Ferrari's car is currently around 6 to 7 kilograms over the minimum weight limit. This is a massive penalty at a track like Suzuka, which is essentially a continuous series of weight transfers. Every kilogram costs roughly 0.03 of a second here, meaning Ferrari is starting each lap with a nearly 0.2 deficit compared to the leaner Mercedes. The Stage 2 update plan for Miami is supposed to address this, but for Japan, the drivers are simply going to have to muscle the car through the technical sections. Mercedes' advantage at the end of the straights is also being bolstered by their 16:1 compression ratio mapping, which they appear to be running at the absolute limit of detonation. By pushing the combustion pressure so high, they are generating virtual horsepower that bypasses the electrical restrictions. Ferrari has been more conservative with their thermal architecture to avoid reliability failures. But the terrifying reality is that the FIA's upcoming June 1st compression checks might be the only thing that actually slows Mercedes down.